Today we have a totally unique car which doesn't have any competitors in terms of technology. Now, to make you watch this video till the end, I will tell you shortly some technological features of this car which are actually amazing. First, we started from unique technology of three electric independent motor. One of them is on the front axle with power up to 230 kilowatts. The other two motors are on the rear axle and they are totally independent. It means they can rotate each wheel independently from another motor. The battery here is also unique technology. It is cell-to-body, and in the hybrid version, this is the first hybrid car in the world which uses cell-to-body technology in the battery. Of course, the battery is BYD blade battery with LFP chemistry from BYD mother company of Denza. And also the steering wheel have independent turning capabilities up to 10 degrees angle of turning, which is maybe not a surprise, but in this car we have the independent turning angle of each wheel, which gives you unique possibilities of steering of this car and parking of this car on one place. And by the way, the most unique things that all these cost below $50,000 in China in basic version. Are you interested? Then please push the like button and let's go to the detailed review of Denza Z9 GT. Now let's talk detailed about the body. This is the shooting brake, same as Zeekr 001, but this car is much larger. The total length is 5.2 meters. The wheelbase is 3.2 meters. And with this enormous size, this car is a world record setter with the turning radius of just 4.62 meters, which is better than, for example, Volkswagen ID.4, which should end somewhere at this part of the Denza Z9 GT. Of course, all that is thanks to the super advanced rear axle with independent turning angle of each wheel and independent rear motor for each wheel. The body itself is made of a super high strength galvanized steel. The rate of high strength in this body is more than 91%. All the outside panels are also made of zinc with galvanized zinc coating, including the door panels, including the front bonnet cover and all other parts as well. By the way, Zeekr 001 and many competitors use a lot of aluminum, but this is a different story. For those who are interested in the latest BYD models, probably no surprise that the suspension here is named Yunnian-A. Even BYD Song L, which is 2 times cheaper, use the same family of suspension which is called Yunnian, but there are several types of Yunnian. We have Yunnian-A, Yunnian-B, Yunnian-C. Yunnian-C is just adaptive shock absorbers without any hydraulic or pneumatic suspension, but here is Yunnian-A. We have the adaptive, continuously variable adaptive shock absorbers, and we have the 2-chamber air suspension, which has the 3 position of the ground clearance, and it is steered by special APP inside the car, which shows you the ground clearance and the total height of the car in each of the positions. Now I adjusted the car in the top level of the air suspension, and the APP shows that we have the 155 millimeters of ground clearance. But actually, from what I measured with my measurement tool, I have 175 millimeters, which is actually 20 millimeters more. I think this is made to ensure you some comfort and extra space for the ground clearance, that in fact you have at least 155, but generally there is a little bit more. This is how it looks on the screen. The APP is called Yunnian. It is not in the car settings, it is in the APP screen menu, and here we have what I just told you about. The total height of the car, its reference height and reference clearance, so it's not precise clearance. The highest position is 158 millimeters. And by the way, all this family of suspension was developed for BYD by the same guys who about 20 or 25 years ago developed the air suspension for Mercedes-Benz S-Class. They just changed their company where they currently work. With all this advanced suspension, we have enormously good result for the nose test of this car. It's about 92.6 kilometers, if I'm not mistaken. And the competitor of this car, which is 2 times more expensive, Porsche Taycan, is much lower. I don't remember exactly how much, but I think it's something like 70 or 80 kilometers per hour. It's really amazing. In terms of batteries, hybrid car and electric car are totally different. Yes, they both use LFP chemistry from BYD Blade battery, they both use cell-to-body technology, but in the hybrid version we have only 38.5 kilowatt hours, which is actually not a small battery for hybrid car. But there is no 800-volt platform, and the maximum power of charging which you can achieve is only 70 kilowatts through a DC port, through direct current port, of course. For this size of the battery, it's completely enough. The total range with the full tank of petrol in this car will be 1,100 kilometers, and the pure electric range of the hybrid is 200 kilometers. And I can believe it in these numbers. Even the pure electric range may be a little bigger in real life in the summer. But the electric version, we have 100 kilowatt hours battery without any alternatives, with the top power charging through the DC port up to 270 kilowatts, which is high power and which can ensure charging from 30 to 80% in just about 20 minutes. With this 100 kilowatt hours battery, they claim a pure electric range of pure electric car is about 630 kilometers, but I think in real life it will be just about 500. By the way, in the DM version, the fuel tank is 53 liters, and the fuel consumption mentioned in the specification of this car is 5.6 liters, which is also quite easy to believe. And here are the charging ports of the hybrid version. Unfortunately, the AC charging port is single phase up to 7 kilowatts. In the electric car, it is totally similar. We do not have the 3-phase charging port, and the DC port is just normal as in most other cars. And by the way, we have here the V2L system in all the cars with power of outcoming of the electricity from this car, 6.6 kilowatts. Technology of this car is advanced and amazing, but I think that Denza Z9 GT is all about interior. In my personal opinion, this is the best interior I have ever tried. Doesn't matter what price of the car, was it 200,000 USD or just 50,000 USD like this one. We start from the automatic doors with servo motors, and we have about 5 to 6 ways to open and to close it. We can open it from APP, we can open it from the button, we can also open or close it from this button, from the mechanical button right here. One more button is integrated in the ceiling, and of course you can do all the same from the central control screen. But for me personally, this is completely not important. What is important here is the door itself. This door feels like 100 kilograms of weight. It's made in some perfectly amazing way, with a lot of details, with a lot of leather on it, with natural wood right here, with very beautiful ambient light right here, with the multi-layered soundproof glass, which is very thick, more thicker than in many other models, and the quality of assembly is perfect as well. Here we have the door seal, which is probably one of the widest I have ever seen, and this thickness of this stainless steel decoration element is probably 2 to 3 millimeters. It feels very solid. Here we have even special soft material stick right there under the rubber sealant here to probably not make this part scratched. Yes, maybe this stick not in a perfect way, but the attention to details which I feel in this car is totally amazing. Before it was only in cars which were worth $200,000 or more. And when you sit inside, the magic continues. Here we have the DEVI audio system from a French brand, like all the other Denza use. We have 26 speakers in top versions and 20 speakers in lower version, and all these speakers in this panel, they goes up by a servo motors, which looks totally amazing. Denza claims that this is the first world car with the interaction of 10 screens. Here we do not have 10 screens because we do not have the optional rear view cameras instead of the mirrors, which should have here the screens, the extra ones, but generally we have many screens for sure. And this is the new Denza Z9, basically the same car as the GT but with different body. This is just a typical sedan car. Here I will show you some features, for example the work of these rear view cameras instead of the mirrors, which I don't like completely. We can shift to the right mirror and shift here to the left, and now if we rotate like this on our screen, we have the right screen adjusting, and we also can to center it, we can also shift back to our screen. But the biggest problem here that the angle is quite wide. This is the 100%. We can make just some zoom, but we cannot make the angle more wide, which is for me not acceptable, and I would not buy this function for sure, as probably it needs a lot of a lot of getting used to it. The main gauge of cluster, the HUD with about 50 or something inches, which is not presented in the basic version, but in the top version we have. The 17.6-inch main control screen, the 17.3-inch screen for the passenger, and all this is actually somehow interactive. The quality of Napa leather, the quality of leather on the steering wheel is also amazing. All these understeering switches are of amazing quality, and the ergonomy is generally taken from other models of BYD. Of course, a lot of electrical adjustment of the seats, massage, heating, ventilation, all of that have for the front seats by default. We have the changeable length of the seat cushion, but unfortunately we do not have here the electrically adjusted side support of the front seats. Actually, as it turned out later, there is active side support for the front seats, same as is Dicker with the sport package, but from what I feel, it's only upper part of the seat. The menu on the main screen, taken from all other BYD models, doesn't matter if it costs $10,000 or $50,000, you will never get lost in it. It's very logical and normal and so on. Here we have the English language from the factory, no need to edit or something. We have both Chinese and English as in all the current BYD models. Here we have the wireless charger of 50 watt of power, which is also have movable this basement for 2 mobile phones. Here we have the crystal buttons, which are maybe a little contradictory in terms of design, but for this dark interior, I must assume they look exactly perfect. Here we have a lot of physical buttons, like steering of the air suspension, like parking assist, like EV or HEV mode, like the air conditioning assist. Typically for all BYD, we have many physical buttons on the steering wheel and on this control panel. That is very nice, and please do not cancel it in future. Here we have the fridge. This fridge can be opened in both sides for the driver or for the passenger. We have also the adjustment of temperature. The lowest is -6 degrees and the highest is probably just 6 degrees. So it's not a heating. No. Look, it can also heat up to 50 degrees. So it's not actually correct to call it fridge. It's multifunctional storage box with temperature changing. That is very nice. Let me turn it off. To turn it off, you should slide to unlock it. Okay, now we put to cooling again. We have the glove box. We have extremely good materials. Napa leather. The ceiling is with some flock or kind of soft textile trim. Looks very premium way and feels like a really premium. All here you have the ambient lighting, also looks extremely premium. The feeling which I have in the interior of this car is the best of all I had in my life. And all these covers of the DVL speakers, they made from very thick stainless steel. The only thing I'm worried about is the servo drives of, for example, these speakers, because I'm afraid that after 5-10 years they will be just broken, or maybe even faster. Then you have to disassemble everything here to change them. Also, we have the panoramic sunroof. It is segmented. It can be opened also by segments in terms of light shade with electric drive, but we cannot open the panoramic sunroof itself. And the total square of this glass ceiling is 2.1 square meters. The second row in this car is very contradictional. First of all, it's extremely luxurious, same as the first row. We have here the premium materials. We have everything covered in probably natural leather, but even if it's fake leather, it feels same as natural. We have here this nice display with adjustment of 2-zone climate for the rear seaters, with adjustment of the seat heating and ventilation. And also in top versions we have massage for the second row. In this car we also have it, I'm sorry. But all this is not so important, because actually it's not a comfortable second row. This is a not premium position and not a premium ergonomy of the second row, because the floor, despite it's a flat floor, it's extremely high. As you see, my knees and my legs almost do not touching the seat cushion, because this distance is extremely small. At the same time, I have some space over my head. I am 1.78 meters height, but I already feel this roof, which is going more narrow to the back end of the car, and here I don't have almost any space. Also, I have here the electric adjustment of the backrest, but this is the biggest angle I can achieve, and this angle even is not sufficient for me. I would like to make it a little bit more back, and if we use it in the lower level, it will be just like a city bus position, completely inconvenient. So basically this is just a nominate story. This doesn't make anything really useful for you. So in my opinion, this car is for front drivers. This is a 4-door coupe car where you can take some seaters for the second row for short drive distance. It's not a VIP car for the rear seaters. And even me, after sitting here for just 10-15 minutes, I already have not a comfortable feeling in my lumbar, to be honest, because the legs, the knees are so much high. Unfortunately, I would put just 3 points out of 5 for this second row, and for some features which I haven't shown, here we have the hack for hanging clothes, and here we have very nice feature, this deflector we can control by the electric button right here. And of course, it would be a mistake not to show you this thermo box right here, which is same as the front box, can be heated up to 50 degrees and cooled up to -6 degrees, and it is more spacious than the front one. But this fridge making small problem for the trunk, to which we're going right now. Trunk in this car is actually a failure. First of all, the volume of this trunk is 488 liters, but I don't trust it. This is based on the specification. I don't see here 488 liters because the angle of how the rear end finishes of this car is too huge. Secondly, this is the false floor of this car. The thickness of this false floor is about 25 millimeters. As in many cars we have this false floor, but usually we have something under it. In this car we don't have anything. So there is no use for this false floor, no any meaning to steal from you this 25 millimeters of the length of the depths of the trunk. They could just make here there's 2 small niches for these things, and they don't need to make any false floor here. For me, it's totally not understandable for what we have exactly this part. Third, we have electric folding of the rear seats, which is of course nice option. Denza N7 also have this option, and in that car the servo drive is extremely slow. In this car it's quite fast, but as you see here we have this fridge, which is basically killing half of the practicality of this car, and we cannot refuse from this fridge in any of the versions. So for me it's a little bit weird, and it's even looking a little bit weird. And right now you see the infography of the size of this trunk on your screen. Just to tell you generally, I think that this trunk is 3 times worse than, for example, in a Zeekr 001, where it is much wider, where it is much longer, where the seats don't have any fridge here, and so on. But this is the result of the design. The rear end of this car made much more narrow. This angle of the door is too huge, and also the door itself, in my mind, it takes more actual space. If we measure all the volume of this door, then we have actual usable space right here. That's really funny. Now I will shortly describe you the difference between the versions of this car. They are not big. Totally we have 3 versions of the hybrid car, which is Pro, Max and Ultra, and we have 2 versions of electric car, which is Pro and Max. The 20-inch wheels is by default, but here we have the optional 21-inch wheels, which are now for free, but usually you have to pay for them. Now it's a promotion. Air suspension is not presented in the basic versions. In top we have by default, but the continuous damping shock absorbers, various shock absorbers are by default in all versions. In the interior we have this zero gravity seat, which can be shifted to the zero gravity position by pressing just one button. This is also only in top versions. In basic versions we do not have. For the second row we have the heating and ventilation by default, but the massage only in top versions. This electric tailgate, which I mentioned before, only in top versions or for extra money. Also, we do not have this huge HUD screen in basic versions, which is only in the top versions. Basically, that is all. There are also some small differences, like the automatic anti-glare rear view mirrors, which is only in top versions, but these are very minor differences, and the main differences I have already mentioned. So now it's time to test this Z9 GT in a DM version, which is easily distinguished by the additional airflow in the front part of the car for the cooling of the internal combustion engine, and that is how look the steering wheel of the rear axle. But at the same time we will start from the crab or compass turning, how it's called. We will select the turning angle and do it like that. We just need to use D, we need to release the brake, and we need to hold the arms on the steering wheel, and the car will do it right now like this. That's how it's working. Of course, I will not do it more because I'm worried about the rubber on this car. Basically, I checked the rubber on this test drive car with mileage 4,500 kilometers is totally okay. So probably the rubber is durable enough. And now just look how we can handle with the length of this car of 5.2 meters on this parking lot. Yeah, as you see, it's quite amazing for this length of the car. Okay, let's perform the normal big test drive. Friends, we are now driving Denza Z9 GT and acceleration from the traffic lights at once. That's quite nice. This is the dual mode version, so it means hybrid, but this is a typical hybrid. This doesn't give you so big burst like in a Zeekr 001, pure electric version I mean, because here you still need to wait for the engine, for the internal combustion engine to get some RPM, to get some power, to connect it via the CVT transmission to the wheels, and then you get it more. And yes, from the start you get it a lot, but a little later, when the car reaches like 80 or something, actually you don't have so much power. The other funny thing in this car, that you have the Sport Plus mode, which is really a little bit faster. When you turn it on, the internal combustion engine starts to work by default at traffic lights everywhere. And at this time, I'm really surprised by hearing this engine and feeling the vibrations from this engine, like in a car for like 10-15,000 USD with normal 4-cylinder motor. Here it's also a 4-cylinder motor. And actually I hear every, working of every cylinder. This is so much surprise for me because the sound insulation in this car is perfect. We don't hear anything what is going on outside of this car. We don't hear those trucks or those vans. We don't hear them at all, completely zero. But we hear this internal combustion engine. Yeah, in this mode, in Sport Plus, the car is pretty fast, but it still doesn't give you that burst that I'm used to get from Zeekr 001 in the top four-wheel drive version. In terms of braking performance, in terms of braking, let's say, ergonomy of the braking pedal, I think it's a perfect car. In terms of the view in the mirrors and view in the front, in the windshield, I think it's perfect as well. And there is no back view basically, but you have this rear view streaming mirror. Yeah, you can turn it off, but the rear glass is extremely small, so you of course better use it. And with this device, there is no any problem with viewing at all. And now, as we are waiting on the traffic lights, I will tell you about the energy consumption, because it surprised me so much, because currently the energy consumption, I think to check energy consumption, we have to change the screen. Let's make the U-turn. This is the sport mode of the suspension, and in the Sport Plus mode, the suspension goes in the lowest position by default. Now we can just turn it off by going out of here, and now I see the energy consumption. In Sport Plus, it doesn't show it at all. Now the energy consumption is 17.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers plus 2.4 liters per 100 kilometers. I think for this huge car in test drive mode, it's something literally perfect. Now we don't have the Sport Plus, it's just a sport mode. Let's try to do the acceleration without hitting any cyclists. Yeah, and now it's very slow. From beginning, she didn't understand what we want to do. Maybe we're not in the sport mode already. Yeah, we were still in the sport mode, but now she didn't understand what we want to do. I don't know why it's like this. This sport mode is basically not a sport mode, and the Sport Plus is actually a sport mode. But the one more very interesting thing I want to tell you about this car is this USS, so the rear steering system. We can turn it on and off by just using one button on this touch screen. And when we have it turned off, the car is totally not up to my taste. Because when I make some faster maneuvers, I feel that really the rear part of the car lives on its own life. I feel this feeling is same when your suspension is not okay, or when you just untighten the bolts of your subframe. and your subframe, your front or rear subframe, just lives on its own, just making some moves which are not in consistency with the body. So for me, this feeling is awful. I think this function available only for parking, for some low-speed driving in the traffic jams or something like that, or maybe in the city. For me, it's not comfortable, not nice, so I will just turn it off. But of course, it helps you to park for sure. This car doesn't show me RPM, but I feel it was somewhere close to the maximum RPM of this internal combustion 2.0 engine. By the way, all the system works totally perfectly because this system used the self-developed BYD microchip, which is 4 nanometers, and actually it's compared to the best samples from the Snapdragon of the last generations. And the speed of everything of using here is completely perfect, completely enormous, no any lagging, no any faults or something. Right now I've had the chance to drive a little more dynamically. Not everything will go in the footage, and I must say this car is unique. They made a lot of algorithms input in the ESP of this car, in the control system of the rear motors, rear wheels. This car allows you to do more than Zeekr 001, for example, which I've used to own. This car allows you to do small drifting, controlled drifting, which not makes you scared at all after you drive this 5 meters car for just like 20 minutes, which is amazing. I would not risk to do it in my Zeekr in the same conditions where I had just half meter to the wall of the place where I did it. I would not risk to do it in my previous Zeekr even after 2 months of driving, and here I did it quite without any risk. The driving capabilities of the car are amazingly nice. The two small things I don't like is the internal combustion engine sound and vibration, and the hybrid character of this car. Because yes, you have a lot of power for sure, you have 4.3 motors, okay, but sometimes on some regime the internal combustion engine still doesn't give you full power, or maybe gearbox doesn't give you full power or something else. So this is quite feelable in this car. And in these terms, I like pure electric more, because there you have all the power which gives you by the control module of the motors. In other terms, I must say this car is basically perfect in driving. And now we are in the high position of the suspension. And as you see here, we have a real like SUV, quite tall car, and we are on the same level. So this is also 2 cars in one, SUV and the Sport GT with 4 doors in shooting brake mode. And by the way, I must say that suspension is extremely nice in terms of dealing with bumpy roads, both in sport version, in sport regime, and in this version in normal and high. There is no water mattress effect, and it deals with bumpy things perfect in all the driving modes. So we've just finished the test drive of Z9 GT. We burnt a little bit of rubber, basically rotating on the same place. I wonder if the rear rubber, it really looks not nice. I don't like this. It's too bad for the car. By the way, the rear tires here are 4,500 kilometers from the factory, and I don't see any visual traces of wearing of the tires. So probably this is not killing the tires so much as I thought, despite I still feel the smell of burnt tire. Okay, the car is actually extremely nice. In some parts it's contradictory, because it's not very practical in trunk, in terms of trunk space, in terms of second row space, despite being huge. But the driving of this car is extremely pleasant, and this car allows someone like me, who is not a racer, make small drifting on a 5.2 meters car just after 15 minutes of driving it in your life. This is for me amazing. The suspension is super nice, the sound insulation is super nice, but I would not buy the DM for sure, because I hear the internal combustion engine, because the character of driving is something not very understandable. You have to wait till the gearbox starts working, till the motor has its own revolutions per minute, and so on. And also you don't know how this CVT transmission will work after 100,000 kilometers, or even after 50,000 kilometers. So my choice would be the EV, which is, by the way, a little bit more powerful, and it has 100 kilowatt hours, so probably 500 kilometers per charge will be no any problem at all. By the way, these cars are available to export. I can help you with that with our own exporting company. And if you like this video, please leave a comment, push the like button, subscribe to my channel, and For sure, write which car you would like me to review in my next videos. My name is Dennis, I'm living in China and I review and export cars for all countries of the world. Have a nice day and thanks for watching. Dear friends, you have just finished watching a video about Denza Z9 GT and I've told several stupid things about the transmission of this car, about the DM system, and now I'm making the new video of BYD Leopard 5. It also has the DM system from BYD and I will try to tell you a little bit more how it actually works. I've just told that this is a CVT transmission, but it's not true. It's an eCVT transmission which doesn't have anything in common with the traditional CVT. There is no any belt-driven transmission. Only one thing is common, that we have theoretically unlimited combination of the torque gear which transmitted to the wheels in both eCVT and CVT transmission, but mechanically they are totally different. In this DM transmission we have basically the one shaft on which we have the planetary gear. To this planetary gear, to the biggest gear, we have attached the main electric drive motor. To the carrier gear we have attached the ICE motor, and to the sun gear we may have attached one more starter generator electric motor. All these three motors can work in totally different ways, transmitting totally different torque to the wheels, and this works actually perfectly. In terms of mechanic, this is the simplest transmission in the world. It is much more simple than a traditional, for example, 5 or 6 speed mechanical gearbox. It is more reliable and more simple than, for example, a hydro transformator. Basically, the hydro transformator gearbox uses the same technology, but there is also added actually the hydro clutch, the hydro transformator. Here we do not have any clutch. Here everything is just based on the physical work of the planetary gear. This is basically what we have in SUVs and off-roaders in the central differential, because this is basically the asymmetrical central differential, but used in a little bit different way. This transmission gives us all the advantages of traditional parallel and consequence hybrid, because this transmission can use the ICE engine directly for driving of the wheels without the double conversion of power from ICE to the battery and then from battery to the wheels, and at the same time it allows the ICE to work in the perfect condition in all the time. The only disadvantages for me that basically in mechanical part it's very simple, but in terms of steering and management of this transmission it's a little bit difficult. That's why when I was driving Denza Z9 GT sometimes I feel that the car accelerates a little bit different in almost same conditions. Like one time it accelerates in this way, other time it accelerates in a little bit different way. That's all because the traditional internal combustion engine, it needs to reach its RPM, it needs to reach its torque, then it needs to transfer all these combined with electric motor and so on. But this we have basically in all the hybrid cars. They work sometimes a little bit weird, especially when you're driving in a sport mode. And of course, as all hybrids, we haven't eliminated the issue that when you don't have any energy in your battery, you have just basically not very high power ICE motor to drive your car. To finalize all this, I would like to say that basically this system, the planetary gear hybrid drive system, was developed and firstly implemented by Toyota in their Prius. It's extremely reliable system, and also I would like to say that there are many hybrids which are not made like this. For example, 10 years old Chinese hybrids, they use the traditional hydro transformator gearbox connected with one clutch to electric motor, with another clutch connected to the starter generator motor, and so on. I explained this in some simple and correct way. If you saw any mistakes, please correct me in the comments, and I really hope it was interesting for you.